That is the fundamental truth of entrepreneurship, is it's not about the ideas. It's about figuring out a way to test them quickly and cheaply and easily.
Dave Bolger here, and welcome to Had I Known, an exploration of the Hamilton College experience. This week's guest is Netflix co-founder Marc Randolph. I hope everybody listening had a great week last week. I spent a good chunk of the week hearing from folks who really enjoyed last week's conversation with members of the class of 1956. What a group. What a great group. And not only am I hearing from people who enjoyed listening, I'm hearing a lot from the guys I talked to from the class of 56 who continue to reach out with ideas and plans for how to continue to push their message and how to continue to impact change at Hamilton. So be on the lookout for more coming from that incredible group of men. I also heard from Al Prettyman, who wanted to clarify comments he made about how many African-American students were at Hamilton during his time. He had said 2, and that was 2 in his class, or in their class. And it's important to note that the other African-American student in that class is civil rights activist Bob Moses. We talked about Bob a little bit during the conversation, but it didn't make it into the final cut of the show, so I wanted to make sure I called that out. He's an important figure in American history and certainly an important figure in that class. And then Al points out that there were 3 other African-American students in addition to he and Bob Moses. If you haven't heard that conversation yet, you're going to want to check that one out. You can go to hadiknown.buzzsprout.com. Again, hadiknown.buzzsprout.com, or get it wherever you get your podcasts. And speaking of Buzzsprout, they want to help you get your podcast launched. If you've been thinking about starting your own podcast, now's the time to start, and Buzzsprout is the place to start with. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or you just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and now Amazon. By the way, you can get this show on Amazon now too. You can get that all done within minutes of recording your first episode. Follow the link in the show notes to this episode. That lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, and when you sign up using that link, they're going to give you a $20 Amazon gift card. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Hey, if you're a fan of this show, we got a special event coming up that you're going to want to check out. Hamilton College is going to be hosting a live episode of Had I Known with a twist. They're turning the tables on me and having someone interview me. My guest from episode 2, David Gaines, is going to exact revenge by asking me the hard questions. God, I hope not. The event, Had I Known Live, takes place Tuesday, October 13th at 7 p.m. You can get more information and register for the event at hamilton.edu. Just head to their events page and you'll find some information on the event. And I look forward to seeing you on October 13th. It should be fun. And David Gaines, if you're listening, be gentle, please. Be gentle. I was kind to you, so I expect you to be kind to me in return. All right, this week I talked to Marc Randolph, co-founder of Netflix and member of the Hamilton class of 1980. Marc just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the publishing of his book, That Will Never Work, The Birth of Netflix and the Amazing Life of an Idea. We talk about the book. We talk about Netflix, of course. I even work in an attempt to get some money back from Netflix for something I overpaid for many years ago. It's a good conversation. It was a fun chat. I didn't get my money back, but I came away with many other insights. Marc clearly is passionate about sharing lessons learned from his experience co-founding Netflix and being the company's first CEO and all of his other business successes throughout the course of his career. So I hope you enjoy this one. Here's my conversation with Marc Randolph, class of 1980.
All right, try that.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Hello there.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, it's like people, if everyone would at least say from now on, we're use nothing except for Zoom, the world would be a much easier place. But some people still have to stick to, Google Hangouts or whatever.
Yep. We're living our lives on Zoom now, right?
Unfortunately so.
So thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Sure.
You had mentioned you were taking some time off. How was your time off?
It was good. I mean, it wasn't completely 100%, swinging in a hammock the whole time. It basically meant almost anything that was truly optional, I didn't do. Uh-huh. So I still had board meetings for the companies that I'd made commitments to, and had some people I was mentoring I wanted to keep in contact with. But all the media stuff, all the podcasts, all the speeches,
sure.
Lots of people, are constantly wanting to chat about their ideas, and I try and do that whenever I can. All done, and it was great. It really gave me a tremendous amount of time back to really kind of figure out, okay, how, now that we're 6-8 months into COVID, how do I stabilize myself in a way that makes sense, which could be the long term. So,
and what'd you find out?
No, it's good. Periodically you do have to step back and reassess what you're doing, and you're using your time the way you want to use it. Are you making forward progress? Are you doing the things you want to do? And I needed to do that. And unfortunately, what happened is because of the book coming out, which was almost exactly a year ago, it really dragged me into a much more superficial mode for a long time. Because all of a sudden I was on Twitter and I was on Instagram and I was on Facebook and LinkedIn. I was doing all these little quick hit things.
Sure.
The amount of correspondence I'd get from people went up by 100-fold.
Sure.
And so I have found myself overwhelmed leading up to August with ephemera. And you finish the week saying, wow, that was so busy, but I didn't get anything really accomplished that I wanted to get accomplished, that I would have felt that I want to spend my time on.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to write, didn't get a chance to really think. And so that was the reset was about. It was like thinking about how do I restructure what I want to do, and how does that fit with what I need to do, and how do I make the time work, et cetera. So a little bit heavy, but that's right. I know I do that every handful of years just to make sure that I'm spending my time doing the things that I want to spend my time on.
Yeah. And I think, back to the point about living our lives on Zoom, one of the things I've noticed with our teams is that there was even less vacations being taken or less personal time being taken. And you can, lift your head up and months have gone by without really thinking about anything other than the to-do list. And to your point, then you never really accomplish anything. So I think a lot of people are even losing sight of what PTO means in this current environment.
Yeah, it is, there's certain events that give you these opportunities to reset. And one was like a year or so after I left Netflix, a bit more. I took my entire family and we moved to Italy for a year, a bit more than a year. And it was a tremendous thing, not just that being in Italy, which was, of course, on a different dimension, fantastic, but the fact that it pulled me out of everything I had been committed to before. Mm-hmm. So all the people I had said yes to about being an advisor without really thinking through what the implications of that were, done. Clean slate. And a chance to think, okay, now what do I want to do? Right. And the same thing in some ways happened with COVID. It was that in one fell swoop, every single thing on my calendar that involved travel was gone.
Right.
Everything was flipped upside down. And it gave me this opportunity to say, wow, how much traveling do I really want to do? What types of travel do I want to do? How do I want to spend my time? So when sometimes these terrible things like COVID do have silver linings if you know what to look for.
Sure. Any big aha moments for you in taking that time? Anything we can expect coming from you in the near future?
I'm afraid I can't reveal anything right now. Yeah, I'm working on some projects, but I'm not ready to talk about them
Yeah,
yet.
sure.
That part of that's what's coming for Mark 3.0.
Right on. Well, we look forward to that.
Me too.
So going back to, I don't know if it was Mark 1.0, but
Yes,
how Mark earlier a prototype of Mark. How did you end up at Hamilton College?
it was the best school that I got into. Listen, I'm not that I'm proud of that. It certainly worked out okay,
Sure.
but it's one of there's certain things in your life that you can't really make a very intelligent decision about what you want to do until after you've done it.
Hmm.
And I think it's a little ludicrous to think that a high school student can really make an informed decision about what is the best school for them.
Sure.
And of course, once you finish school, then you can kind of look back and go, oh, maybe I should have tried this or that. Or this wasn't a good match for me. And the second thing is, and I know the folks in the admissions office will kill me for this, is there's so much attention paid on trying to differentiate schools, which largely for the impact they're going to have on someone are differentiatable. I mean, it would be quite a challenge to take any of the NESCAC schools and say, oh, your experience will be dramatically different here than there. It's different if you go, I've always wanted my entire life to be a large animal veterinarian. And some schools, yes, will have programs for large,
Sure.
but most kids who go to liberal arts schools go in without a clue what they're going to do.
Right.
And so I didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but
No.
it just goes to show that, I chose Hamilton. I was ahead of my time. And then I applied to 20 schools or something like that, that was back when most people applied to 3.
Right.
Now, of course, kids apply to 617 or whatever. But then 20 was a lot. And so I had a bunch of choices, and Hamilton was it. And, I really, it ended up being a really great, perfect choice for me.
As a geology major, was starting your own company and becoming a tech entrepreneur the goal, or what was the thought?
Oh, of course, because you think, let's see, best possible preparation. Maybe it's religious studies or geology. I think probably either of those is probably equivalent in terms of becoming an entrepreneur. No, I chose geology for a very reasoned reason, which is that they did a lot of field trips, and I've always been a big person about the outdoors.
Yep.
I love climbing, I love mountain biking, kayaking. Whatever I can do that involves potential for injury that's outside, I'm in. And so geology is something that I was just curious about. I mean, spending time in the mountains, you're exposed to the rocks. You're exposed to tremendous tectonic forces and the after effects of those. You're exposed to glaciology, hydrology. And so being able to learn about things that I was seeing in the rest of my life was just intellectually very interesting. But I had zero, or maybe a -7 interest in becoming a geologist. This was purely pursuing education for education's sake, not for career preparation.
And was that a conscious decision at the time? You knew why you were choosing the major, and that it wasn't a life's pursuit or a life interest? I mean, did you already know that there was another path for you when you were making decisions like that?
No, I had no idea. I mean, seriously, when I went to school, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life when I grew up. And probably even when I was, as a senior, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life when I grew up. But certainly when you realize you have to begin thinking about what you want to concentrate in, and it lacking this sense of, I know what I want to do with my life, you go, well, I may as well just pick something I'm interested in to get a lot of credits in.
Sure.
But the thing that I often tell people is I majored perhaps on paper in geology, but in reality, in terms of where most of my focus of my time and attention was, I was majoring in extracurricular stuff. But I don't mean like partying extracurricular. I mean, I was taking advantage of the other wonderful aspects of Hamilton and of a liberal arts education, which is the opportunity to take on responsibility in other aspects of life, starting clubs, starting publications, putting on productions. doing these things which involve many of the exact same skills that I'd use later on, recruiting people to help me, helping to figure out what's the best way to allocate these resources after taking into account strengths and weaknesses. How do you communicate what your vision is, and how do you translate that vision into action? How do you go to the student council and ask for funding? What's the most effective way to do that? How do you work with the administration to convince them to give you the basement of Benedict Hall to turn into an outing club headquarters? I mean, that's the exact same skill, just writ a bit smaller than you use when you're actually starting a company, and you get this chance at a place like Hamilton.
Right. And far too often you don't realize that a lot of those opportunities go away quickly once you walk off that campus as a graduate, and become a lot harder to make them happen. And two, I think a lot of people don't realize that those are the skills, the things that are likely the frustrating parts of being the president of some club on campus, are exactly those skills. I'll never forget having a conversation with my uncle at the time as the president of the rugby club. And he had had a successful career on Wall Street and was telling me how wonderful it was that I was the president. I said, no, it's not wonderful. I got to call all these other schools. I got to get the fields. I got to get the AMT schedule. It's a big pain in the ass. And he said, you have no clue what you're gaining in terms of experience. And I really didn't have a clue.
Yeah. It's absolutely correct. It's a big piece of what education is about. I challenge slightly the contention that opportunity goes away once you're out of school, because there's always the chance to do things like that. You just have to do them on the side of your regular job, as opposed to on the side of your regular studies.
Right.
But you're still squeezing something else in. The beauty is that you're supported while it's happening, as opposed to going broke
completely on your own. And exactly right.
This way, if you totally flail at setting up your club, well, you still can go to the dining hall and they'll feed you, and you still have a dorm room, which I won't say it's a roof over your head, but it's close.
Fair enough. Fair point. So then, how did you find the path, and what were the steps coming out of Hamilton as you started your career?
So it's actually a really it's a really interesting story, because I had kind of begun to land on the fact that I thought I might like advertising as a career, that I thought it was kind of the right blend of left brain, right brain thinking, and creativity and writing, which I liked, along with the business objective side of it. And I thought the perfect job for me was going to be an account executive at an advertising agency. And although it was long shot, they occasionally did take undergraduates rather than taking MBA students. And so NW Air, which was back then one of the big advertising agencies on 6th Avenue in New York, was up recruiting at Hamilton, of all places. And I went and did the cattle call, and amazingly kind of got the nod that I had made the first cut. And I was all excited that I'd be one of 2 or 3 people. And I get down there and there's 200 people milling about in the lobby. But anyway, I went to that day and made that cut. And then there was maybe 40 people. Came back again, spent this time the whole day interviewing up and down the building, and made it the cut once more. Now it was just 4 of us. Went through all that, and then came back to Hamilton, and then got the call that I had not gotten the job. Oh. And I was kind of heartbroken, because of course, once you invest yourself in getting a job, all of a sudden you've convinced yourself, well, this is the only thing I want. Yep. So I was disappointed, but I wasn't going to take that sitting down. And so I said, all right, what do they have that I don't have? In that classic 22-year-old hubris. So wrote a letter to every single person I'd interviewed with over all 3 days I'd been to New York. Every single one of them, like 25 letters. And everyone said, basically, what did I do wrong? Or more positively, what can I do better? What am I missing? What classes could I take? What experience would help me if I wanted to come back and apply for this job next year? And I got a call and said, why don't you come down to New York? And I got ushered up to one of the senior VP's office, and they offered me the job. But here's the cool part. The cool part was that they had not given the job to any of us. They'd said no to all 4. Because this was a kind of a turn a no into a yes type of job. And they wanted to see which of us wouldn't take no for an answer.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there was a really fascinating lesson for me in that one. And it turns out I didn't take the job, but, which is another grueling moment. But ended up heading out west, and I had this opportunity to run kind of a ghost town resort in the mountains between Steamboat Springs and Vail, which was so far over my head. You know, I was the pressure down there was immense because there was so much water over me, and but it was an incredible experience because we had cabins. We had a big, huge restaurant. We had a huge bar and dance hall. We had these blowout concerts on the deck every weekend. We had lots of staff and huge cash flow issues, managing people, managing the advertising and the marketing. And it was this crash course in real hands-on business. I mean, big enough there was real pressure, but small enough when someone pushed in one area, you could feel it in the other. And immediately you begin to get a sense of what was working and what wasn't working. And that was an incredible learning experience for someone who had kind of this abstract understanding of how real business might work.
And that was
kind of first job out of school.
That was first out of school. Did you? Yeah. Were there a lot of people who looked at you like, "What the hell does this kid think he's doing?"
Well, yes, but of course, again, I wasn't smart enough necessarily to know what I didn't know. And so like, if they were, I was ignoring it. You know, I just plowing ahead blindly.
And how long was that job?
That was about a year and a half.
Okay.
And then came back to New York State and got this weird job working for a music publishing company. You know, did sheet music. You know, like Beatles for auto harp, or like Led Zeppelin for tuba. You know, sheet music that people would buy to learn. But big publishing company. And my job was, I was like, now they have a fancy name for it. Now they call it chief of staff. But it basically is the gopher who follows the CEO around with a pad. And anytime someone says, can you give me those numbers on Wednesday? You write down, make sure you get some of the numbers on Wednesday. But anyway, besides seeing how a CEO works and what they do and how they react with people, but I got exposed to all the different areas of this company. And one of the areas was the mail order division, which calling it that is a gross overstatement, because the mail order division was exclusively a one sentence phrase in the back page of every Cherry Lane songbook that said, for a list of more great Cherry Lane songbooks, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to a P.O. box so-and-so. And my job, I said, I want that job. And they went, you sure you want that job? And I'm like, yeah, I want that job. So they put me in charge of this mail order division, which meant Xeroxing the list of the more great Cherry Lane songbooks and putting it in the self-addressed stamped envelope. And when an order came in, I'd pick, pack, and ship the order. But for some reason, that was it. This is what I want to do. I love this.
What called you to it?
Because it was very creative. I mean, because I began going way beyond the list of more great Cherry Lane songbooks. All of a sudden, I began reading everything I could find on direct response marketing. And I'm trying multi-page and color and doing catalogs and doing mailing. And then I'm convincing them to put more ads in the songbooks. And I'm placing ads in other music magazines and learning about how to do repeat orders from people and add-ons and bundles. And it was my playground. And the more I could learn, the more I would try. But there was this creative element, like I was saying, designing, advertising, and working with the copy and having to be persuasive from a distance. I mean, I call it remote empathy. How is this person going to react when they receive this envelope in the mail? Matched with analytics. Right. Because being direct response marketing, you knew. So you could say, I have no clue whether they're going to respond better to the blue envelope or the red envelope. But then 3 weeks later, down to 2 decimal points, how much better the red envelope is than the blue envelope.
Right.
And that was so fascinating. Plus the logistics of it, plus the fact that you could see a cause and effect. That was it. And so for the next 20 years, in fact, for the rest of my life, I was a direct marketing person. That was my passion. That was my calling.
Amazing that the delivery mechanism has changed, but really the fundamentals of it have not.
That's the lucky break of my life.
Huh.
Is that, I mean, there's overlaid on this, of course, the entrepreneurial aspect, the fact that I really loved building a company, because I took that little self-addressed stamped envelope business and built it into a big 40% of that company's revenue over the next 2 or 3 years. But that's the entrepreneurial angle. The other angle is the direct response piece. And you're correct that when the internet came along, it was like direct marketing on steroids.
Right.
All the things you struggled to use personalization. And you were doing great personalization if the letter said, "Dear Mark,
Right.
Won't all your friends on Charles Hill Road?"
Right.
And you go, gosh, we are knocking it out of the park. But of course, the internet allows you to personalize with incredible granularity, where every individual sees a page customized to them.
Yep.
And selling on the internet, e-commerce, my God, that's so powerful. So if you look, now you fast forward to Netflix, of course, and you go, well, subscription. Right. I started 2 magazines before which even internet came along, and that was all direct response marketing using subscriptions, personalization at Netflix, because so much of what I was doing was involved with direct response personalization. So, these things, your life, looking back, you can see the nice progression of stepping stones that you hopped from one to the other. Looking forward, it just looks like you're about to, hop on a lily pad and go under.
Right. I'm curious that along the way, you talk about your experience and the insight you gained and the learning opportunities you had along the way of how to act like a CEO or how to start a business. Are you aware in the moment that these are valuable lessons you're gaining? Are you banking them away, or is it just reflection? Oh, I learned something there.
No, you're not banking them away. You're just going. Oh, some of them you go, whoa, I had no idea that would work.
Yeah.
And other ones you go, I am not going to let that happen to me again.
Right.
But it's probably why my big premise is that the only way to become an entrepreneur is to do it. That these are not skills that you learn, in a book, or pardon me, but in school.
Except for yours.
Yeah, even then you don't learn it in school. But it's like learning to play golf. Okay, you can watch all the videos you want about how to swing a golf club, and you can read all the books about it, but you're not going to play golf unless you go out there and hit a shitload of balls.
Right.
And same thing with entrepreneurship. If you're doing, just like when I was with geology, I was outdoors in the mountains, and so when someone told me, oh, that's what caused it, I could make the two together. Mm-hmm. So education about entrepreneurship has to be coupled with doing it, so you know how to apply what you're learning and it makes sense to you, and you have the skills and the communication skills and the decision-making skills and the triage and the focus and those fundamental things which you cannot teach someone. You have to hard knocks them. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
It's a good one, and it reminds me of something you mentioned in the book, and we haven't mentioned the book, That Will Never Work. You mentioned in there a bit about writing the business plan and the idea that the overwhelming majority of business plans are a waste of time because you need to rush in and start doing, because the moment you start doing it, the business plan becomes obsolete. And I think your comments there kind of remind me of that. Is that another one that was learned out of experience, or you knew it going in?
No, that I didn't. That is experience.
Yeah.
And it's basically when you start, let's just talk about testing something. You have an idea you think might work. And at first you commit the cardinal sin of you overthink it. And you think about it and you try and think about every possible way, and you've over-designed it in your head, and you spend all this time, and then you finally try it, and the fundamental premise was flawed. And so all of that thinking about how it was going to be polished and what would happen if it was wasted. You should have just gone immediately and tested the premise in a half-assed way and seen what happened. And each time you do that, it whacks you on the head to go, stop wasting your time on all this preparation. When we launched Netflix, which was back in April of 1998, I called the book, That Will Never Work, because that's what everyone said when I pitched that idea. My investors said that'll never work. And the employees said that'll never work. And even my wife said that'll never work. And to their credit, they were right. It didn't work. And it began this long, year and a half long journey to figure out what might work. And at first, like to the point, I was testing things to perfection. So we'd spend 3 weeks in the test. We'd do custom photography. We'd argue over every word of copy. We'd stress test the site. We'd double check every link. And then we'd run the test and it would fail. And we'd realize we just wasted 3 weeks on a stupid test. So then you go faster and you do it in a week and it fails. You do it in 2 days and it fails. And pretty soon you learn, just get the thing out there. And even at first you're wincing. You're like, oh, this is bad. And pretty soon, I never got to the bottom. Meaning I never went, oh, okay, that was too bad. Make it a bit better next time. Every single time I launched a test with broken links, with misspellings, with typos that would crash the site, it was never a bad idea, because even then, if there was a glimmer, the customer saw it and told you what it was. And you learned it that much faster and that much cheaper and that much more easily. And that's the big lesson. We've jumped it to the very meta thing here. That is the fundamental truth of entrepreneurship, is it's not about the ideas. It's about figuring out a way to test them quickly and cheaply and easily. And that is the learning that came from over time of each time I thought, oh, this is pretty rough. Yeah. And it was never too rough. I could always make it rougher and faster and crappier.
I suspect that given the success of the Netflix of the world, the Amazons of the world, current students today are likely more entrepreneurial or have visions of the big acquisition that students of other eras didn't have. Do you see a difference as an advisor, do you see a difference in young entrepreneurs and startups than, maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I want to slap them. Go, wake up. No, it's tragic in a way. I mean, on one hand, what's happened, of course, is entrepreneurship has become very glorified.
Right.
There's movies about it. There's The Social Network, and it's all over television. And there's the Shark Tank, and as a result, a lot of people see entrepreneurship as something that it's not. They see it as a path to riches, which is explicitly not. They think it's all glorious and fun, and you're going and doing pitching to people, and it's not that either. It's very repetitious. It's very, very scary. You're always on the edge of collapse. And there's wonderful things about it, but they're not these things people think they are. And that's kind of the tragedy. And I even forgot where the question was, but it certainly hurts that people are going into it for the wrong reasons. Yeah. And truly, the reason I wrote the book, on one level, yes, I wanted people to hear the untold story of how we came up with that idea and got that company off the ground and fought off Blockbuster, et cetera. But the other reason, I wanted people to have a true warts and all picture of what it really feels like to be an entrepreneur, to see that it is not all excitement and glamour, that there's a lot of hard times, a lot of struggles, and a lot of fun times too.
Sure.
But it's a different thing than people imagine. My oldest son wanted to be entrepreneur, and there's a huge danger because there's tremendous confirmation bias in me and my friends who he sees, oh, wow, this is a great life. Look at Mark's house. But I'm extremely lucky and extremely rare. And so I said, listen, I love the fact you're interested in this, but if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you need to spend the year between your junior and senior year, and you're going to come to San Francisco, and we're going to find you a CEO to work for. And you're not going to work at a startup like Facebook or Google or Apple. Those are not startups.
Right.
You're going to work for a 6 or 8 person company, and you're going to sit close enough that you see what that CEO does every single day. And if at the end of the summer, you're going, oh, that was really cool, then you're in the right place. But if you come away going, whoa, did I dodge a bullet? Well, then we're both ahead of the game.
Right. Yeah, that comes through in the book, when you talk about having to open an office and think about down to, is it clean? Do I have to have it clean twice a week or once a week, or how does that work? I'm curious, are there other things that people don't think about when it comes to running a startup that when you're in the moment, you're like, I just wish I had someone to do this for me?
Yeah, I guess the biggest pressure, that stuff's okay because it's pretty easy. You quickly can pass that off to someone once you get a little bit down the runway. The thing that never goes away is that sense of responsibility, because to be an effective fundraiser, for example, you have to bare your soul. You have to tell people, I'm going to make this happen. I have this responsibility, and you giving me money is I'm taking that seriously. And so every day you feel that. And same with the employees. You've convinced them through the power of your conviction that they should leave somewhere else they're working, which pays them better, which has much better benefits, which has much better job security, and come join you on this chaotic quest to do something which everyone is saying will never work. You have an obligation to do everything within your power to make that come true for people. And that never stops. And that's a very, very heavy burden, and a very lonely burden sometimes to carry.
You talk about in the book being passionate to the point of just pure blind faith that the idea is going to work. Given the pressure that you're talking about, did that faith ever waver, or did you know that now you had other people relying on you that now it had to work? When it went from just you and Reed to a group of people and you had to make it work.
The faith certainly wavers, just not for long. I mean, to think you don't get knocked down would be oversimplification. You're constantly doing in the book, we talk about that incredible trip we took to Dallas to try and sell to Blockbuster. And we were in desperate straits and finally had gotten that meeting. And then, when we said, we want you to buy us for $50 million, and they laughed at us, it was a terrible blow because we were so confident. This was such a self-evidently great move for Blockbuster. It never occurred to us that once we got the meeting, that it wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. And so when it didn't happen, and not only did it not happen, but we learned they were going to be competing with us, that was a tremendous moment of horror, terror, disappointment, depression. And especially then you realize there is no way around this problem. There's no secret door, that the only way out of this is through. And that's the bounce back part. You wake you're depressed, and then next morning, okay, I got an idea. Back to the we're going to try this. And then that's what does carry you. I admit it, I'm an incredible optimist. I see every glass is overflowing. I just can't help it. I'm a believer.
That's great. We need more people like that in this world, especially these days.
Yeah, I'm being challenged. They're testing me.
The water's going down a little bit, Mark. The water's going down a little bit. If we go back for a second to the early days, you mentioned in the book, and I've heard you talk about, you had grown tired, or you had had enough of working for other people. You wanted to start your own business, and you wanted to sell things on the internet. So What was the idea behind, what was the desire to sell things on the internet?
Again, never at any point was this about building a unicorn or something, never. This was about taking on a really interesting challenge. I knew I was going to start another company when it was time for the next one. There was never a question about that. So no, it didn't make a difference. It wasn't scary. And if you look at the timing, it was in 1997 really where we came up working on the idea, doing the research. Will this actually work? Amazon was public. Yeah. So Jeff Bezos had already kind of demonstrated that it was possible to sell things on the internet, that in fact, people will be willing to make decisions based on what they saw on a screen and trust it to come in the mail. And that was a big leap. And he was also just starting to demonstrate a lot of the faith that I had intuitively seen about what the power of the web could do for your ability to sell things online. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't scared. I mean, it certainly succeeded, not just the company, but the internet way beyond my wildest expectation, which didn't hurt nothing. But it was certainly not anticipated that way, and I didn't care.
When did the idea, was there a future looking vision of what Netflix looks like today back then, of how consumption of media would change? I mean, it was very much obviously DVDs, but was there a thought of, we know that eventually that it's not a DVD business?
Oh, absolutely. It was explicit from day one.
Yeah.
You know, I told you a few minutes ago how everyone I pitched the idea to said that'll never work.
Yeah.
Thus the title.
Yeah.
And they had two reasons. And reason number one was Blockbuster, that there was 9,000 video stores at the time.
Right.
And you could throw a rock, and no matter where you live, throw a rock and you hit a Blockbuster store. And so why would someone do video rental by mail when you can just run to the Blockbuster store? But the other reason why everyone said that'll never work is because they all said, well, DVD is a digital media or medium. I'm not sure the DVD is singular or plural. DVD is a singular medium. Okay, see, now I have to hold my thing about liberal arts education. I'm messing up my Greek or Latin. See, I don't even know that. All right. I went to Colgate. Okay. No, it was a digital medium. And so we kind of knew that it was inevitable that eventually people would be downloading or streaming this, or we didn't know how, but it would be delivered digitally. And so we knew from day one that we could not build a sustainable company based on we're the world's fastest shipper of plastic, because eventually that was going to go away. But at the same time, we had this challenge where we could not build a company which was, we are all about digital delivery of entertainment, because it was not possible back in 1998 in any reasonable way. There was no, the content wasn't available. There was not fast internet to the home. And if there was to the home, it was hooked up to your computer, not to your television.
Right.
So and the worst of all, Hollywood was never going to let themselves be Napstered by letting their content be digitized and put in the clear. So we did see the fact that it was going to come, but we had no idea what form it would take, nor when it would happen. So we had to build a company which was effective now and for the foreseeable future, but yet when the world shifted, we would not be impacted, and we would have used that time building something which was actually helpful for the future. And so what we came up with was that the company became positioned as a place to discover great stories, which works when you're being delivered them on plastic, who cares? Or when you're being delivered digitally, who cares? Or when we can beam it, telepathically into a filling or whatever the future is. But it's still about discovering great stories. And that was what the investment was. That was why we want to have every single DVD at launch, why we spent so much time on the content, why we built the taste matching algorithms, why eventually we went into proprietary content, why we're currently doing production locally rather than all centered in Hollywood.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing back to
from the stuff at the beginning.
Right. And to your earlier point, when that pivot was ready to happen and other competitors needed to scramble to build up customer lists and databases, you were already sitting on a wealth of data.
And way, way, way more important than that, than having people's credit card numbers and all that crap, in their head, they already associated Netflix with content.
That's right. The brand recognition and all that was inherent in everything you had already been built.
Correct. It's equivalent to just basically saying we're no longer on channel 17. We're now at channel 620. Right. A little bit of a switch, but who cares? Right. You keep on doing it on 17, and eventually everyone goes to the HD channel. But it was like that. We already had people understanding why we existed, and tens of millions of customers who were in that habit. And so you're right. When streaming came along, it was just a matter of switching it over and bleeding the two together and transitioning, doing the baton pass to the next delivery method.
Right. Well, it's confession time that really the only reason I've pulled you together for this conversation is because I'm hoping you can point me in the right direction. So this is, I don't know if you can see this. This is one of your old DVDs.
Oh my
There's
goodness.
the Netflix logo on it.
Badlands.
I thought I had lost this DVD and paid for the replacement, and I've since found it. So I was hoping you could help me get a discount on or a rebate on.
Sure. Send it to me in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I'll send you back $3.25. How about that? Or I'll send you an autographed copy of the book, which is
There you go. I'll take it.
more
I'll take
valuable.
it. Oh, maybe an autographed Badlands DVD.
There you go.
With the Netflix logo on it. It's now an artifact. One of the things I'm curious about, you talk about this in the book a little bit, and I'm curious to get your thoughts based on your points around entrepreneurship. Is certainly in Silicon Valley, growth is God, and it's growth, and growth hacking, and it permeates, I think, all facets of business now. But I'm concerned that it's not always the right sort of approach for certain businesses, and it drives certain businesses to get out of what they do well and try to expand into places that they don't belong to try and chase that growth. Curious your thoughts on that.
So I'd ask you, what's the point of baseball? Okay.
Yeah.
Is the point of baseball to win the World Series? Well, for a certain group of clubs, it absolutely is.
Sure.
But not for 98.7% of the people in this country who play baseball. For them, it's very different objectives. And I think it's exactly the same. Certainly in the league that I play in, it's absolutely about growth. It's explicitly about growth.
Right.
And more importantly, one aspect of it is that when you receive venture funding, they're not doing it because you're a heck of a guy. They do it because they want their money back, and they want it times 100. Thank you. And that requires growth. But the number of small businesses that are started every year in the United States is a huge number, way, way, way beyond the tech startups that I think you're referring to.
Sure.
So when someone starts a pizzeria in Los Gatos, California, that is a startup. When someone starts some service in Dubuque, Iowa, that is a startup. And their objective isn't growth. Their objective is slow growth, sustainable growth, lifestyle business, whatever their objectives are.
Right.
But yes, where I play, we're playing for real.
Yeah.
And that's a different game. So but even so, some companies, but wow, not many, can survive by growing very slowly and methodically on retained earnings. But most opportunity when you're playing in new markets, when you're taking advantages of new trends or new business models or new technologies, you don't have a lot of time. You have to grab customers now, because if you're not, someone else grabs them. Right. And so once you've discovered that you've built a little machine that when you put $1 into it, churns out $2, yeah, you could just keep taking the $1 and doing it over and over again. But it's much better to get someone over here with a bucket full of $100,000 and pour it in.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, and that makes complete sense. I think it's more the people who get in it and suddenly I can't sell pizza anymore. I have to sell pizza and hot dogs when no one's ever bought a hot dog for me before, just because that's where I'm going to chase the growth. And then now the pizza is not as good because I'm now distracted from making hot dogs, and that's just not
absolutely true. Yeah. And it's one of the things I absolutely coach the people that I mentor, especially at the very beginning, is you've got to be very explicit about what you want from this, especially once you start down the venture-backed path, because then you're in, you're all in, and your objective is to return value to your investors. Right. And unless you're comfortable with that, don't do it.
Right.
If you want the lifestyle business, which is completely acceptable, just make sure you design your business to be that kind of business. And occasionally it surprises you. When Looker, the most recent company that I did, when we started, it was supposed to be lifestyle business. It was supposed to be self-serve. On the website, it would just be, here's the $49 a month plan. Here's the $99. Here's the $129, most popular. And you sign up and you do your own analytics. And the product didn't want to be that. the product was much more powerful than we anticipated. Its use was not for small business. Its use was for enterprise. So then all of a sudden you're going, okay, they grow up to be things you never expected. And this was a different beast, and it required lots of venture money. It required hiring people who carried briefcases and sold face to face and all these things I never anticipated I'd be doing a company that involved with those things. If I was 50 some odd, 50, my mid 50s, I had never run a business that involved face to face selling. So you can learn new tricks,
Yeah, it's interesting. At this point in your career, have you seen or been pitched every single subscription idea possible?
Yeah, there was certainly a period where I was getting, picture this, the Netflix of belt buckles, the Netflix of, believe me, everything. And luckily that has died down quite a bit. And now I love subscription businesses. But what's happened is, SaaS, software as a service, is subscription. And now it's become not only a model, it's almost the preferred model for almost any software product. And even companies that probably shouldn't be subscription are going. I'm looking right now. I'm looking right now. I have this Fujitsu scanner, a sheet-fed scanner. And it worked flawlessly for years because you put the sheet in and boom, it appears on your computer. And then they decided, we've got to get into this subscription business. And now they make you, when you put the sheet in, it's got to send it back into the cloud where they can charge you for the cloud access.
Right.
And it works like a piece of crap.
See, that's my point, Mark. That's what I'm getting at. They did something well, and they changed what they were doing.
Yep. You see, you were right all along. I really should have learned to listen to you faster.
I'm going to write a book. So looking back, as we take you back to your time on the Hill, and you certainly in the book is very much about this. You've spent a lot of time thinking about your experiences and sharing those insights out. But I'm curious, is there anything you wish you had known when you arrived at Hamilton, looking back now with all your experience?
Wow. No, I don't look back very much like that. The thing is, I've long since, so not surprisingly, I get asked, what's your biggest mistake all the time? And not that you're asking that now, you're asking a different twist of it, but it's like, I have to have a stock answer I give because I don't really think that way. So many things I do are wrong. So many mistakes I make. But each time I do that, it ends up being this incredible learning opportunity that I just don't see it that way. I come up with stupid, trite thing, like we bought a safe for the house, which we never use. And this, not only was it expensive, but the thing weighs like 17,000 pounds or something. So it's stuck where that's a mistake, but that's stupid mistake. But it's not like I go, I wish I should have bought Google back when it was
right.
Well, whatever. I'm the luckiest guy you're ever going to meet. I've had an amazing run. Partly because I was in the right place at the right time. I was incredibly lucky. My timing was good. I was in the right geographic place. So I don't look back at anything that think, wow, I wish I had. I'm delighted with exactly the way it all worked out.
That's great. How do you like doing book tours and I guess not a tour because we're in this age, but how do you like doing all this press?
Well, actually, I love this part of it. And to be honest, in fact, it's kind of, we were talking, there's about this, you have transitory moments where you go, what's important? And I've kind of realized that what came out of the book, which I wasn't quite aware of before, is that so many of the lessons that I've learned about how to start and run early stage companies are applicable to anybody who has a dream. And not necessarily a dream of a business, some other idea, something else you want to see happen. But it's exactly the same process. And part of the reason for doing the book was to share those things with people they can use for anything in their life. And being able to have a pulpit to help inspire people or help motivate people or help tell them that I am no smarter than you are, I'm no harder working than you are, that you can do these things. That was a wonderful opportunity.
That's great. Anything else we didn't cover that you wanted to cover?
No, I think this was actually great. I mean, I'm still a huge fan of liberal arts education. I think, especially now with the world changing so quickly, the thought that you can predict what it is you should prepare yourself for in some specialized way is pretty risky. Whereas the skills of being able to communicate well, to be able to read and understand what you're reading, to be able to make and defend an argument, and all these basic principles of liberal arts education, how to learn, how to teach yourself things, that stuff will never go out of style. I'm really, really thankful for the education that I got at Hamilton.
All right, there you go. There's Marc Randolph, co-founder of Netflix. It's not a bad one to be able to tout at reunions, huh? Hey, what have you been up to? What did you do? What have you been doing since graduation? Oh, you know that thing that's on everyone's television that's the only thing people watch now? Yeah, I helped create that. It's not a bad one. My thanks to Marc Randolph for joining the show. The book is That Will Never Work. You can get it, I don't know where people get books. I don't know, am I allowed to say Amazon? I don't know if he has like a thing with Bezos, but I guess Amazon. I bought mine on Amazon. You have been listening to Had I Known on WHCL-FM, Clinton, New York, WHCL.org, hadiknown.buzzsprout.com for this and all previous episodes, Had I Known Show on social media. My thanks, as always, to Dr. Michael Woods for supplying all the music on this show. And getting back to normal, as always, Doc is going to play us out. Hope you enjoyed the show. Talk to you next week.
Had I Known podcast show on your radio or take it to go.